Yellowstone has arguably been one of the biggest shows of all time. Now that we're finally getting a spin-off series, everyone's ecstatic. However, with how massive the show was, it's not surprising that the shooting process is very intense. So much that there are a bunch of rules that the cast has to adhere to. In this video, we're going to talk about all about them. Before we get into what strict rules the actors had to follow, here's what the spin-off series 6666 will be about. Showrunners of Yellowstone first decided to make this spin-off series after the insane success Yellowstone initially got. On top of that, even Yellowstone's prequel, 1883, is pretty hyped too, so it's no surprise that they decided to make another series. Fans aren't complaining either. We'll lead up just about anything related to Yellowstone. 6666 is actually going to be a completely different storyline that isn't related to Yellowstone, the ranch. 6666 takes a slightly different approach while still being in the same world and setting. It's mainly about the 6666 Ranch, which is one of the biggest and oldest ranches in all of the United States of America. However, this isn't like any other ranch. It's filled with a bunch of dark secrets hidden under the soil, which will be revealed sooner or later in the series. This is completely different from Yellowstone's storyline, which is about a family ranch and all the hardships while trying to keep the ranch and fighting off property developers who want their ranch. With this show, we'll get a deeper understanding of how Yellowstone's world truly functions other than just the Dutton family or their past generations. In 6666, we'll basically learn more about what was going on around the farm and the entire world that existed outside of the initial storyline, that of the prequel. It's all super exciting. So when is it coming out? Spin-off series is still under development, so there's no specific date announced yet on when it will premiere. However, because 1883 will be released on December 19th, 2021, will most likely be released around late 2022 or early 2023. Although that's pretty long time from now, at least you'll be able to view all of Yellowstone's seasons during the long wait. 6666 will be released exclusively on Paramount Plus, as the Yellowstone and 1883 did too. Now, let's cover strict rules the cast of 6666 has to follow. First, they have to follow COVID-19 protocols. Ever since the virus took over the entire world has changed. This majorly included the filming process for the cast of 6666 has completely changed. Even though the virus is pretty much under control now, there's still a lot going on. Things can still get out of hand really quickly if everything isn't done by taking extreme precautions. Even if just one person gets infected, we'd not have to deal with very long delays. People's lives could be in line. That's why the cast continues to follow a super strict set of rules to limit the spread of the virus. If a scene is being filmed, then only the essential cast and crew can be present for it, which can be a little inconvenient at times. However, if they film outside, the rules are slightly more relaxed, which is great since 6666 will mostly be about a ranch, so they'll probably be filming outside for most of the time. On top of that, if 6666 is also filmed on private property, as Yellowstone did, they'll probably have a lot fewer restrictions. This is because if you're filming in cities or towns, you'll have to be much more careful with the protocols. Lastly, not everyone needs to get vaccinated. Some people don't get the vaccine for personal or religious reasons, which can be a hazard for anyone else in the process too. So they have strict control over the actual precautionary protocols being followed instead. Next, the actors can't take your phones on the set. In this day and age, literally everyone has a phone with them. Our entire lives are online. It seems very difficult to have a full day without them. But for the cast of 6666, going without your phone for hours is just one of the many things that the cast needs to do. To be fair, this is a pretty big rule in the TV industry itself, which, if you think about it, actually makes sense. Firstly, cell phones can be pretty distracting, especially if it starts ringing out of nowhere while everyone's trying to focus on filming. Most of the time, shows and movies are running on a pretty tight schedule, so having to redo the entire scene just because you can hear a phone ringing in the background can be really annoying. Even though you could just turn the phone on silent, which would be the solution to everyone's problem, but not everyone's going to actually follow this, so it's easier to just entirely take away the phones from the set. Another reason why they can't really take take their phone is to prevent spoilers from happening. Spoilers can be an absolute headache to deal with. Not only do they ruin the show for the fans, but they also create hindrances for the producers. Most of the time, the cast doesn't even mean to spoil the show, just happens accidentally, and that's why it's better to just remove the possibilities entirely by banning phones at the set. Up next, they have to be careful with social media posts. Just like the one with cell phones, the cast has to really be careful with and what they post on media. Because of how immersive the experience can be, it can also be very difficult to keep things off of those Instagram stories. The crew can't put anything online, nothing at all, not even their outfits. That's gotta be annoying, especially when you really want to post that OOTD. Another for the list, they have to go through a vetting process. Every single cast member has to be vetted beforehand. There are actually many reasons why everyone needs to be vetted. One of the main and more obvious reasons is to ensure the cast member is actually talented enough to be able to take on the role the producers want them to. Some movies or TV shows just rely on live casting, which can be disastrous because no one really knows if the cast member will be able to play the character exactly how to play the character like the producers want them to. Or they could also have a bad attitude. Having to work with someone that has a bad attitude can be super difficult because when there's a lack of chemistry in real life, it's painfully obvious through the acting and won't make for a good take. When making a cast, you also need to make sure that the person you're casting actually fits in with the environment and works well with other cast members, which is just another reason why vetting is important. Vetted usually also means checking for any kind of criminal activity, especially any sort of violence, which could possibly harm other cast members or the producers. Obviously, this doesn't mean that you won't get a role if you have a criminal record. This is just why the cast of Yellowstone spin-off 6666 had to go through this, and the future cast members will probably have to go through it too. As long as they're vetted, they can come on board. Next, the actors need to get a health check before going to the set. This is probably the most common one and also one of the most important ones too, especially when they consider today's circumstances. By getting health checks, you can make sure that the actors are healthy enough to get right into shooting. Since 6666 will most likely be physically intensive to film like Yellowstone, it's no wonder the cast is forced to follow this rule. While there probably won't be tested every single day, it's going to happen a lot more than usual. Of course, it's not just the actors that are going to be tested, but the rest of the crew as well. But since the actors are the most important part of the show, they're going to have to get tested more than the others. This can be pretty inconvenient, but they've got to put up with it anyway. Lastly, the actors need to bring their own props. After the whole Alec Baldwin debacle, actors have been encouraged to bring their own props to the set of 6666. Plus, it's a lot more sanitary too, since there are usually germs on most props because they're actively being used. Getting rid of props is not a possibility because in a show like this, it's important to have props for the scenes to make sense. While this might sound unheard of, it's actually a pretty common thing for actors like Brad Pitt to do. If there's a scenario where the actor needs to have a specific prop that will literally don't have, then the crew will arrange for it then. But the cast of 6666 will have to wash their hands every time they use the prop, and the prop will have to be sanitized every time it's used as well to make sure that nothing has any germs on it. The actors are familiar with the props. That's a wrap for today's video. Do you think some of these rules are a bit too heavy to top? Make sure to let us know in the comments down below. And as always, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and click the subscribe button for more videos like this one. We'll see you next time.